2, 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this very special panel discussion on children's publishing in Asia. This is the 4th year we hold the summer fellowship. Thanks to COVID-19, we are not able to do this in real life, but doing this online for the first time means a lot more people can participate and join us today. So that's actually a good thing for this panel. I think we have about 100 people registered, which is much bigger than what we usually had. My name is Gui Tan. I am a literary agent, although I have to confess that children's books are not my specialty, which is why I'm the moderator today, and I get to ask all the questions. Luckily, I am joined by 9 experts from Indonesia, South Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, and Taiwan, and who really specialize in this area and will be sharing their thoughts on children's publishing in a very special and, I would say, challenging year. In the past 12 months, I would say children's books have basically become a survival tool for parents, because everyone is locked down at home and can't send the kids to the kindergarten. And children's books are a bit of a lifesaver for a lot of parents. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And a few things for the audience before we begin is that we will be doing a Q&A after the discussion by using Slido. So you can please check the comment section. There is you can see the link to the Slido. We'll be using that app. So feel free to send in your questions, and I'll be firing them to the speakers later. And we're doing this simultaneously live on YouTube in both English and Chinese. So pick the language you like. So I'll give a very quick introduction to the speaker today. We have Ellie from Changbi, Korea. Hi, Ellie.
Hi.
We have Su Xin from BK Agency from Taiwan.
Hi, everyone.
We have Su Pawi from Amarin Publishing in Thailand.
Hi.
And we have Juan from B2S, also from Thailand. We have Ha Emily from Thai in Vietnam. And we have Qing Lan from Kim Dong Publishing House, also from Vietnam. And we have our 2 Indonesian speakers are Yuliani from Misan.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
And Azira from Nora.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, so the panel discussion is going to be in 3 sections. And the first one is I'm going to ask you about, please give us a bit of a market overview, and especially the influence and the challenge of COVID-19. So shall we start with Su Xin? So what is the recent impact on the market, especially in children's books, and how are the bookstores doing, online or brick and mortars? What about the book fairs, and what kind of marketing initiatives are publishers doing?
In Taiwan, we've had more serious restrictions since mid-May, but up until then, we've basically been very relatively unaffected, as I'm sure you've been hearing from other speakers this week. But since May, because many shops or people are not advised to go out, even though shops are actually still open, so you could theoretically go to bookstores, but really most people aren't going. So the sales for physical bookstores is really down and is really affecting chains as well as indie bookstores. But however, online shopping has been increasing. So either shops that have their own website or Shopee, which is now becoming incredibly popular in Taiwan for the last 12 months. People are buying a lot there. Even chain bookstores like SI, they're setting up their Shopee accounts that people can buy from there. In terms of the publishers, as I said, because I think relatively we have been pretty unaffected by all the restrictions and sort of COVID impact. So I don't think there's been like huge changes to publishing plans, but I think self-study books and self-improvement books, exercise books, kids have been really, really popular, and they have been incredibly popular over the last 2 months, especially. In terms of book fairs, most of our book fairs has been cancelled or moved to online. So it's really for agents promoting Taiwanese books to international publishers. It's been really, really difficult for cultivating new opportunities. But in terms of buying books, ongoing business, I think ongoing business are pretty unaffected. But in terms of cultivating new business, it's really hard. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Is there certain kinds of books that work particularly well under the circumstances, apart from the workbook?
So I heard books.com, which is Taiwan's Amazon, coloring books were really, really like down for a while after like the first big trend. But recently they've sold out of their coloring books again, and they're just like going into stock. So I think things which keep people occupied and busy, and exercise books for kids, learning like phonics, learning ABC, how to draw, this type of books, they have seen a huge surge of demand in the last 2 months.
Thank you. Let's move on to Shira. Let's move to Indonesia. I would love to hear how the market is doing in the past year.
So I think it's similar to a lot of countries, because since the pandemic, a lot of physical bookstores have had to close down, and some of them sadly permanently. And then like several months ago, when everything started to open up, bookstores start to open up again. But now, because of the recent surge in COVID-19 cases, then sadly they have to close down again for this past month. But yeah, so both the publishers, bookstores, and also the consumers, we have all been relying heavily on online bookstores. Like Sushin said, Shopee is also very popular because Anura is part of Mizan Group, and Mizan also have the official store in Shopee and also in other marketplace. We also have our own online bookstores, mizanstore.com. So yes, we've been using our online channels a lot more recently. And in terms of books, children's books are really very gaining more popularity, especially like board books and also storybooks, picture books, because I think parents need need their children to occupy with activities and stuff like that. And in terms of the adult books, it's more self-help and psychology books, because I think in this tough time, people need a lot more assurance that they need to, take care of their mental health and their well-being.
Thank you, Shira. Yuliani, do you have anything to add?
Okay. Yes. Yes. The market is shrinking in Indonesia since March 2020. Lots of bookstores are closing, so book sales is decreasing a lot, and also number of first print run of each title is getting lower. Usually we print about 3,000 copies, and bestsellers like 5,000 copies for first print run. Now we only print like 1,000, 1,500. So, and it also sells very low, very long time to sort out all the copies. And bookstores are limited the operation times, and book fairs also canceled. There is no book fairs in Indonesia during 2020, also 2021 until today. There is no book fairs. Once they make like book bazaar, I think it is only works for 2 days and then canceled out. So more online events publishers doing more online events like storytelling events, book launch, book discussion using the online platform. And also I think most of our titles, which is published during this time, go through pre-order session for about 1 month or before publications. So this has been the most, the newest way for us to do this in the last 2 years, pre-order session. Almost every title is going through that, so we can make sure number of copies we print the first print run. I think that's all. Thank you.
What are some of the recent bestsellers in children's books in Indonesia? I'm curious.
Recent bestseller, I think the series about health is doing good. Introducing children to the precautions to keep hygienes, like washing hand, using mask everywhere, and then distance from crowd. So we published this series of children's health, and like 3 months ago, 2 months ago, it's launched and getting good sales. But nothing particularly really big bestseller, just maybe more than the others.
Thank you. I think the pre-order session is a really good way to keep the accurate.
Yeah. Also, thanks to the online marketplace, it is really possible to do that now. We usually use Shopee, Tokopedia. Everyone is buying from the online marketplace and pre-order from that. So it is really possible to do that now.
Thank you. Next, I would love to hear from Ali about how things are in South Korea. You have to turn on your microphone. Yeah.
Sorry. Book sales have not been decreasing in Korea because online bookstores are so active. But small publishers have difficulty with their sales because they couldn't do their marketing properly. And there are 3 major bookstores in Korea, like Gyobo, yes, Aladdin, and their sales were increased to like 17%, compared to 2019. But for example, Gyobo, their online sales were increased to 30%, but offline increased only 0.7. So online stores are doing well, but offline bookstores are kind of struggling here. So, children's books are quite popular in Korea, like activity and exercise books are so popular as parents spend a lot of time with their children at home. And some books that teachers recommended to students sold very well. And for Changbik, children's and YA books are doing really well last year. And Seoul Book Fair were moved to online platform last year, but I'm not sure it was that successful like offline. And we canceled a lot of offline events and we held a little bit of online event, but we still did offline events, but it was only limited size. And there are some bestsellers at Changbik. There are like My 9-Year-Old Book. It's a middle grade chapter book. One in the Green Lioness. It's also middle grade fiction. And Watermelon Swimming Pool by Bong Soon-loon. It's a picture book. But from other publishers, Magic Chinese Character, the educational comics, and Curious Cookie Shop, the middle grade fiction from Japan, and middle grade book about economy books are one of the best sellers.
Would you say economy books?
Yeah, book about economy.
Yeah, you mean teaching kids about finance and.
That's right. Yeah. The finance books are very popular because financial assets were increased huge last year.
Yeah.
People spend a lot of interest in like stocks and bitcoins. So so they usually like to teach their kids about finance from their childhood.
Yeah, they have to learn about how to handle money since they're kids. Yeah, business books were also, this kind of books were also very popular in Taiwan last year. Yeah, of the top 100 bestsellers
Wow.
of 2020, 25% are investment and personal finance.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's similar in Korea too. Yes.
Yeah. And next, I'm moving to Vietnam, and I would love to hear from Ha. Microphone. Thank you.
The Vietnamese market is the same with Indonesia and in Taiwan. The COVID pandemic had disrupted business and affected many publishers in Vietnam. And something changed, like printing fee increased from 30 to 50%. That origin retail price also increased. Yeah. Also, of course, revenue decreased. Yeah. Next, you can see that we're reducing the number of books printed each month. In the past, we published from 10 to 12 titles per month, but right now we just publish 5 titles. Because many things, because markets, because printing fee. Yeah. Also, we've moved from retail environment to e-commerce platform like TP, Lazada, Shopee, something like that. Of course, physical books down in my company and also Vietnamese markets, and also audio in new trends in Vietnamese markets. We will choose company audio in Vietnam like Phonos and Voices, and it's so popular right now in 2020 and until now. Is Vietnam children's book and psychology and health book is the bestseller in the pandemic. Also, we move physical book fair on this physical book fair moves to online book fair. Yeah.
How many copies sold are considered a bestseller in Vietnam? Usually.
Yeah. 5,000 copies.
It's about the same here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Qinglan, do you have anything to add? Because Kim Dong is the biggest children's publishing house in Vietnam. It'll be very interesting to hear about your experience.
大家好，因为越南的基本的情况呢，
in Vietnam, I already introduced it, and in our publisher, most public children's book, and over the past year, I think the situation is not too bad because that many children have to stay at home. They have to spend a lot of time at home, so children are reading more books, and parents are also buying more books to them. So we are seeing more publications from children's book, for example, like comic books or illustrations book, especially comics. Many high school students are buying comics by themselves. We are also publishing a lot of other products related to these comic books, so they are willing to buy comic books and other products.
I would like to ask Juan to share your thoughts. Juan was able to came to Taiwan 2 years ago when we last held it. Yeah, I still remember our dinner together, and yeah, it's nice to see you here.
I think we are facing the same situation, and we have to move to online, and it's quite good. It's quite good, but anyway, I think because of the lockdown and the bookstores have to be closed, it does affect us all. Yeah, and I have just known that in Indonesia and Vietnam you use Shopee and Lazada too, and we use it too, and it goes quite well. And we have quite almost normal time since the middle of 2020 because there's no new cases of COVID-19. until this like a March that we have the third outbreak. So I think that can help the bookstore and entrepreneur and the owner of the business quite a lot. Anyway, the bestseller, yeah, as you know, B2S is quite new for the children books, but yeah, we are focusing more on children books because I think when it comes to book, the children books is the priority of the parents.
Thank you. And Supawi, Amarin is a general publishing house. You publish all kinds of books.
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell us like which category has done better or worse in the past year due to COVID?
Since we publish like all kind of books, so in general we let's say we don't really like have kind of like a deep drop in sales. But yeah, we kind of do promotion online more, and we promote the sales on ebooks too. But the major type of book that is still going on and still like selling well is fiction, like BL fiction and like boy love and boy and girl fiction, normal fiction, romantic ones are still doing really, really good. And in general, parents would sometimes spend their money on children books a lot, and they order online. So we kind of doing okay, like yeah, in general. But until recently, like last month, the government kind of locked down again, so the bookstores have to be closed. So we start online promotion, but I just saw the sale yesterday and it dropped quite a lot. So I think we should try to do promotions on all kind of books more. Yeah.
Do you find that using online marketing, it is more difficult to break out new authors compared to established big names?
We try to do like Facebook Live and YouTube Live to introduce like new books and tell them like the story and about the author and why they should buy this. So I think it promotes new books better than just do an online post or anything. Just try to have someone to communicate with our customers. That would be better. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so that concludes my first section. And the next section, I want to focus on publishing local authors. What I want to know is how much, what is the percentage of translations you publish, and how much local authors you publish, and how do you discover local talents, and how do you promote them, and do local titles do better or worse during the lockdown or during the pandemic? Yuliani?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, about local authors, we publish more local authors now, and so limited number of translations. Why? Because local authors are more popular and easily accessed, easily recognized by readers. So they have already many followers in the social media, and it really helps in promoting the books. And also, they are very active in engagement with their community. So the local authors are getting more and more published than translation for the last few years. That's possible promotional activities are more varied to them. Actually, we also do some translations and try to make the same promotional activities with translated authors, but sometimes the community is not here. I mean, maybe they are active at the social media, but not with Indonesian readers. so it is not as much effective with translated authors. But of course, it applies for adult titles. For children titles, the engagement is different. So, but anyway, we don't publish many translated titles for children books. More local same. What's the next question? The topics from how do we find them? So topics might come from both ways. Sometimes in-house editors have ideas and then they search for authors, writers, and illustrators. And we find them from communities of illustrators, communities of online writers, you know, that like Wattpad and Webtoon, they have many readers, and then we bring it to print publishing.
What is the most popular social media in Indonesia?
Instagram, maybe now. More and more Instagram live sessions for promotional activities.
I think of the 5 countries and 5 markets the speakers are represented today, Indonesia is the country where local authors are most popular. I think Indonesia has the lowest percentage of translations.
I think so, maybe. But it is not easy to sell them to foreign publishers.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to ask next. Yeah, like what do you do to, I mean, in addition to publishing them locally in print and in digital, what else do you do? For example, do you sell film rights or adapt them into animation? And the foreign rights?
Some very popular titles get sold into adaptation into movies for local production house. Also streaming video. It is increasing. I think lately more and more. What does it call? Streaming videos. So they make a short series from books. Very popular novels is approached by a production house to make a web TV series. So it is doing domestically. For foreign countries, we try to sell the rights for translation, but for movies, it's not. I think the local only for web TV series. Is that all?
What is the most popular streaming platforms is it Netflix in Indonesia?
There are some locals, but I don't remember the names.
Okay.
There are not only Netflix, like View or Hook. So many now. I cannot. But it doesn't appear on top of my mind. So, but I know that some of our writers is getting approached by these web TV streaming programs to do adaptation of the novels into a series.
Okay, thank you. Next, I want to move back to Taiwan for Susin. What's your take on, in the past year, of Taiwanese publishers doing local picture books and children's books, and has it been easier or more challenging for you to sell these books abroad?
So in terms of I guess promoting Taiwanese authors, I think it's the same in both children's and adults. It's traditionally been really difficult for us. Taiwan is very translation dominated. I think the top is Japanese, and then second English speaking language, and but for children's has been increasing. It's a gradual increase. It's not a huge surge, but it's a gradual increase for the last 5 years that publishers are more willing to work with local authors, and some publishers have a goal to basically increase their local author publishing. So now like a third of the books are made with local. This Baba, who their book won the Bologna ragazzi this year. They publish Taiwanese illustrators and authors only, and then there's a few doing that as well. So with Bologna this year, Taiwan actually won 3 awards. So there's the Fiction Prize Award that I mentioned earlier, with Baba by illustrator called Ling Lian. And then in the poetry category, there was Amino Chan, who also had received special mention in Bologna. And last but not least, Pei Xing Qiu, who won the illustration award this year. I think this is like been the greatest result as here. But in 2019, we had I think 9 or 8 illustrators who also were shortlisted in the illustration category. So Bologna has been a very important fair, which I think has given publishers some confidence to work with local authors. However, I have heard both from the publisher and from the illustrators that sometimes they win these awards, but the awards do not really translate to sales. So I think now the challenge for a lot of authors and publishers is how do they balance like winning these awards and how do they like translate really these results into sales and convince our readers that these books are so worth buying. So that's kind of been a trend for the last, I guess, 2-3 years. And in terms of like where to find local authors and illustrators, I think they use Bologna actually. A lot of publishers, also Taiwanese publishers, who look at Bologna because sometimes they're not working with those Taiwanese illustrators as like a benchmark to work for them. Knowledge Taiwanese authors and illustrators don't tend to have agents. Some of them start to do, and a lot of them do like a postgrad in the UK or the US, and in which case sometimes they deal with British or American agents directly, which is incredibly helpful in connecting them with not just Taiwanese publishers, but with British or American publishers directly, which can also really foster the growth of the work. And in terms of like promoting the Taiwanese books for children's books, I, as an agent, I have to say I have found it very, very difficult without book fairs to do it effectively. You can their catalog and promote them, but I think without the face-to-face and without a better context, because a lot of people still, apart from I think Korea and China are the 2 markets we sell to the most, but outside of these 2 markets, Taiwanese picture books are still, or children's books are still not very well like understood or sold. So apart from our big authors, it has always been challenging to introduce the books, to give them a good context, to show a good range, and to kind of tailor to publishers around the world what they're interested in and to find the right books for them. I think that's everything.
Thank you. I completely agree that that physical book fair is so important. And yeah, I'm dying to go to Frankfurt, go to London, and I was hoping that we'll be able to go to London next year, but it sounds a little tricky. Might be best to just hope for Frankfurt 2022. I don't know. Speaking of promoting local authors, South Korea has always been known for doing this job very well, especially the LTI Korea. And I would like to ask Ellie what kind of government support has from Korean government for children's books in terms of translation and also promoting them abroad, and whether Jumpy, for example, has benefited from these government initiatives.
There are main 2 organizations, government organizations who support local authors. But the first one is KLTI, Korean Literature Institute of a translation institution, yes. But they usually support foreign publishers and translators who translate and publish Korean authors. So we usually don't have any benefit from them, But there are other agency called KPIPA, Korean Publisher Industrial or Promotion Agency. They provide some help with translation and promotion, and they sometimes hold their own book fairs. So we got support, usually got support from KPIPA when it comes to translation and the network, foreign publisher network with foreign publishers.
And what's the percentage of translations and local authors in children's publishing at your publishing house?
At our publishing house, we publish mostly local authors. It's over 90% for us.
Wow.
Yeah, for the other publishers, I think it's like 50-50 or 60 or 40, something like that. Now, but we used to buy a lot of foreign titles for children's book, but now local authors are getting stronger, so we focus on local authors these days.
And which foreign countries are the best markets for your local authors?
Japan, China, Taiwan, and Vietnam. Yes.
Let's move back to Thailand. Supawi, I would love to know, how much translations, what's the percentage of translations and local authors in children's books, especially at your company?
For us, it will be 80% foreign titles.
Wow.
Yeah, because of the sales. Parents always choose like Japanese translated ones, Korean translated ones, and Korean books from European countries. So we have kind of like our own understanding that we do translated titles better than local ones. So we license more than five local authors. Yeah. And so normally we do translated more as I have said, and then sometimes for big authors in Thailand, for well-known ones, we would publish like once in a while. Yeah.
You mentioned you do a lot of co-printing with European titles. Well, in our experience for Taiwan, at least, co-printing usually for us is more expensive. It's not necessarily cheaper. It's cheaper for the European publisher. Was that a case for you as well, or is it?
It's I'm not like dealing with this, so I'm not like specialized. But yeah, I think it should be cheaper, or else we wouldn't do that. I think we have kind of like Chinese or Hong Kong, I think, printers that provide us with the printing techniques that we cannot do by ourselves, because we have our own printing factory, but sometimes we cannot do some techniques for children books, so we just hire them. It will be better. Yeah.
Got it. Juan, do you have anything to add to the children's publishing?
Now we have only foreign titles, but we are open for any promising title, as you know.
Great. And then I want to ask Qinglan about, I mean, Jintong must publish so many children's books a year. How many of them are translations, and how many of them are from local authors? And can you tell us a bit about some of the most important local authors in children's books?
Well,
in Vietnam, we have really low percentage of local original creation, maybe 20 to 30%. And most of the time, we import from foreign countries. We have foreign titles, about 70%. So for children's book, a lot of them are picture books.
And picture books is not just about the text, also there's illustration. So it takes some time. And in Vietnam, we don't really have professional illustrators to support this Chinese, this children's book writer. So very often the illustrator, they would take commercial commission. Rarely do they think about taking this children's book illustration as a full job. That's why in Vietnam, actually, most of the time we import foreign titles.
What about your company? Do you publish in children's books? Is it also more translations and not so much local authors? Microphone.
It's my company foreign title maybe, I mean 90%. Just only just be 10% for local authors. We don't pay attention for local authors for children's book. Actually the first reason because we cannot find, because we don't have a professional illustrators. That reason we would like to buy more from the foreign country. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, that's the second part of the discussion, and the third part is digitalization. I think everyone would agree that it's been very important especially for the past year. And when it comes to children's books, I think the kind of digital innovation has been especially, we've seen a lot of different things. For example, a lot of people would, when we say, let's say audiobook, for example, a lot of people would just, read a whole picture book and put them on YouTube or put them in a podcast. And how do you license that? And do you charge money? And it's a lot more complicated than adult books in my experience. I think it's a lot more straightforward. For adult books, you just license the whole book, to be read verbatim. But when it comes to a picture book, there are so many different ways. There are also the kind of pen that can touch the page and it will read it out. How do you license that? Is it sold as part of the package, or is it separately? Do you take royalties for that, or just a fixed fee? So I would really love to hear how the ebooks or digital adaptations and audio adaptations have been implemented in children's books in your countries. Shall we begin with Susin? Do you find it, when you represent the foreign books, and when, for example, Taiwanese or Chinese publishers asking you for all these kind of different rights, how do you deal with them?
I must say, whether it's like translation from like other languages into Chinese or Taiwan to other languages, I think maybe I would say now maybe 20% of our clients ask for also ebook rights for picture books or like chapter books, but I think it's still something they sign because a lot of them are preparing to do it, or they have plans to like roll it out on platforms. But to my knowledge, like most of them aren't, they're not making most of their sales on ebooks, so they don't have like a big ebook platform, but some of them are preparing for it. But the majority of the publishers, they still don't really sign like any kind of ebook rights. And I think, as Grace said earlier, in terms of like problems which we've encountered, like reading pen or with like ebook platforms for children's books, there are some really crucial difficulties in terms of like monetization. It's really difficult for distributors to get on board and start to promote them. So for example, you could be like asking a distributor in Taiwan, like, okay, we have this book and then we have a reading pen. like, do you sell them as a package? And also, like, normally reading pen for one publisher only works for that publisher. It doesn't work for a different publisher. So these things are not like, they're not homogenized. So it becomes really difficult. Like, how many reading pens do you want your kids to have? Do you want them to have one? Or do you want them to have 5? Because you're buying 5 books from 5 different publishers. And each one of them in Taiwan costs at least like about $30 US. So it's quite an expense, even if you want your kids to read English and like to listen to them. So it's really difficult, and it's a difficulty for distributors as well, because they might want to just deal with one publisher or 2 publishers. They also don't want to just start importing like, you know, reading pen from 5 different publishers. What's going to happen to the stock, you know, in like 3 or 5 years time? So these are problems. And in terms of like ebook platforms for kids, I have seen some like very sophisticated like picture book platforms from Europe who have also won like Bologna Ragazzi Award. But the difficulty, again, I think is monetization. So it's really difficult. For example, if they want to come to Taiwan or like go to Korea or Japan or Vietnam or Thailand, it's probably best you have like a local distributor or like a local partner who help you to like promote the ebook platform so it can launch, it can, you know, get big. But without a lot of like marketing fee to begin with, like local publishers or distributors aren't going to do that for you, because digital normally you see like a fee. It's like, you know, $6.99 a month or $7.99 a month. So what is the distributor going to get out of it? Because price is transparent. It's very difficult for them to do that unless the platform is like specifically tailored business to business, where like customers cannot see how much a monthly fee is. In which case, you know, the local distributor can say like, okay, in Thailand, we're going to charge like 100 baht a month for this. And there's no way for the comparison. As they start to do that, the whole system just kind of collapses. So I think these are some of the really difficult problems with ebooks or like digital monetization with children's books. And in terms of like audiobooks, there's like, it's not really standalone. Like audiobooks is normally like a component. So for example, English language books, you get a CD or like an MP3 file at the end of the book, so the kids can listen to them. But if you were just selling the CD alone or the MP3 alone, it just wouldn't work. It has to be like packaged together with a book. And I had some discussions with Katrina. I think like from my understanding in the English language world, there are some like really famous like voice actors, like Disney voice actors, which probably many of us remember when we were kids. So when they also release like an audiobook CD, you're like, oh, Robin Williams is telling a story, Tim Fry is telling a story, so we're gonna go and buy that. But in Taiwan, this is not, it's not really existing like this. There's no like celebrity voices where parents going, oh, this celebrity is doing this, so we buy. Or like the kids are going like, mom, I want to listen to blah blah blah, tell me a story. Like it doesn't really exist. So audiobooks doesn't really work. Kind of standalone for us, it has to be like packaged, and normally it has like some kind of educational element, so it's not just like yeah.
Thank you. Ali, do you publish picture books, ebooks, and how about the audiobooks? Microphone. Your microphone.
We don't publish e-picture books at all, but we publish audiobooks. But audiobook market is not that big. We also use NFC tag to connect to the audio program. Yeah, we developed our own program, but the service is for the library only. But we don't make a lot of benefit from the services. Yeah, we have to wait. And for the other publishers, trade picture books don't provide audio services. Usually they are more for picture book packages. They use QR code or pen for the audio services. So they are usually for promotion or add additional services. So usually they don't pay the royalties, or they pay only fixed royalties only. But when it comes to audiobook sales, we usually pay 25% of net receipt. And there are also some companies who provide, augmented reality or VR services, with picture books. We haven't made them, but we license some of the rights to the companies.
Yeah. Juan, what about Thailand? When you publish children's books, I know you're very new in this area, but do you also publish e-books, or what about audio? You have to turn on the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. We asked for the rights to do the ebook always when we bought the translation rights. But for me, I think when it comes to children books, physical book works better, way better, because when the interaction between mom and kids when during the reading time and the texture of the paper, children can I don't know how to say it professionally, but I think their eyes and their hand and when they listen to the mother who reads to them, I think it's better than electronic platform, and I don't know. I think is it automatic for children that when they touch iPad or iPhone and they always go to something that can move,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I think.
Thank you. How about Yuliani? What about Indonesia? For your children's books, do you also publish ebook edition, and what about audio?
Okay. For children book, we don't publish in e-picture book. At our house, I can only speak for our publishing house. Maybe for other publishers, they try to make the electronic edition of their books, but we don't. But we sometimes use e-pen for our children books. For example, the health books that I said before, we add audio content into the e-pen. So it is like additional feature for children to enjoy the content. So there is songs and also text is being read, but not exactly the same like in the books, in the printed books. So that's so far we do audiobooks like that for children, but for adult titles, we work with another company that specialize in producing audiobooks. So we don't do it by ourselves, by other. So like collaborations. They buy rights. They buy the audiobook rights from us. Okay.
I'm curious about the pricing of audiobook in Indonesia, in your experience. Is it?
I don't know about the pricing because we don't. Also, this collaboration with other company that produce audiobooks is really recent. They are still in production, so.
Oh, okay, still very new.
Not in sales yet.
How about Shira? What about your experience?
For Nura, we try to publish the ebook for just only a couple of our picture book titles, but mostly we rely more on physical copies. I think customers also prefer to have physical copies for children's picture books because the interaction between parent and child, and also the fact that the child can can hold the book anytime. And also I think more and more parents are more conscious now about reducing screen time. So screen time of their children. So yes, and we also did try to publish a couple of our children's books packaged with ePen, but we feel it didn't really work that well for us, so we don't do it anymore. And in terms of audiobook, we are just at the very early stage, but not for picture books. We're going to start with adult books. So we are only at very early stage of acquiring the audiobook rights to some of our parents. Still very early at that.
Thank you. And Qinglan, what about your experience with Vietnam? Do you release audio editions of your picture books?
在越南的情况呢，其实也跟
In Vietnam, I think it's similar to in Thailand or Indonesia. When we are doing ebooks, it's mostly adult books, and parents mostly purchase a children's book in a paper-based books. So parents want to accumulate children's to read books, so they prefer text paper-based. And we are developing and working on audiobook as well, but we mostly use it in literary works. As far as I know, that for other publishing houses, I know that they pay about 30% of license for audiobooks. And so the audiobooks is not really popular at all in Vietnam either. Thank you.
We have a lot of questions from the audience. I am going to take a quick look. All right, I have one question which I like a lot. And what is the best resource to identify East Asian children's literature that has been translated into English? Do you have, how do you track the titles from your local market that has been translated into English and published in the US and UK? Anyone wants to start? Su-Xin? How do you track the Taiwanese titles that have been published in English?
So in Thai, it's not super easy because we don't have like a central platform that tells you the data very clearly. When they organize a book fair, they will, depending on where it is, if it's like in Mexico or Germany, they might display like a list of authors that has been translated into Spanish or German and so on. And from there, I can kind of see. And then other times I just have to, call the publishers like, oh, who have you sold this year? Or just from events like this to kind of share information with the Taiwanese publishers to find out which publishers, and also from the information from both books from Taiwan and the brochures from Taipei Book Fair Foundation.
Yuliani, do you have any, like the best source to track what Indonesian children's books have been translated into English?
So unfortunately, the same. Like we don't have the centralized database for tracking what Indonesian titles has been sold to foreign countries. Usually we just ask personally to. So Mr. Num Atasana, the Borobudur agency, he used to ask every publisher like once a year or a year before book fairs, international book fairs, to collect the number of Indonesian books that has been translated into foreign languages. So that's very manual style of collecting information. Yeah.
Thank you. What about Ellie? Does LTI Korea have this kind of database? Which Korean books have been translated? Do they track which Korean titles have been translated in English?
I think they have a lot of data and providers. And we also use agency and book fairs. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Let me see what else. All right. So this is an interesting question. Over the meetings of the past 2 days, have you seen any interesting Taiwanese children's books? And if so, which is, of the most interest to you, and why? If you still remember of the so many titles presented to you. Xinglan.
Xinglan.
You remember any the Taiwanese children's books that you were most interested in?
其实你刚才问我是吗？
对对对。
Is that a question to me? Okay. I remember there's a book about the viruses published by 小天下. And it's because under the pandemic, people hate viruses. So actually, it's a children's book about virus. That's in the book, we try to have a fair view because some viruses actually they're beneficial to the overall ecology. And actually, yeah, I think on the during pandemic time, that's a very interesting book.
Be impressed. Supawi, did you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of kind of Chinese monsters and spirits picture books that seem to be interesting to me, but I'm not sure whether the editor will be interested in. So I try to show them the pictures. Yeah, so hopefully they will be interested in it. Yeah.
Thank you. Here's another interesting question. Someone wants to know whether you've used the rights platform of the Bologna Book Fair and the Frankfurt Book Fair, whether you've used that, and what's your experience? Do you find it easy to use or very clunky, very difficult? Huh? See, you're smiling.
Yeah, actually I use both, but actually I don't like this because it's so complex for me because my team actually don't like to use this for copyright. But I think that I like Gather Town. I think Gather Town better.
Yeah, for the audience, the Gather Town is the kind of virtual space we use in its past. Yeah.
I think it is so interesting, and I can feel better, and I can walk everywhere. So it is so interesting.
Let's go back to Gather Town.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Frankfurt, they should, build a Gather Town rights center. That would be very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. All right, so this question is for Ali, for South Korea. How do you organize online storytelling events? Like which platform do you use, and is there a limit to participants?
We used to hold paid online event of book talk show last year. So yeah, there are only limited people. Yeah. I think it was through Zoom. So yeah, but for the other events, you usually use YouTube streaming services. Yeah.
All right, so here's another question. If I want to sell a Taiwanese children's books to your market, what is the most important thing I should be aware of? Like if there's any taboo, or what is the? Can you give us a tip? Start with Ali.
Korean publishers like famous authors, so as long as they are famous and received any awards, they'll be so ready to approach.
I think it's the same everywhere.
I think so.
You want big authors.
Yes, everyone does.
What about Juan? What about Thailand?
Yeah, I think I am sensitive to the word bestseller, and like we have just bought Lei Long, the dinosaur bus.
Lin Xiaobei.
2 titles, yes.
Yeah.
And I chose this because I think it can make children be more happier when they have to go to school. For me, I think the children books that the content is about culture is quite difficult for us because, as an adult, we also have problem understanding the different culture. And for children, it can be more difficult,
Thank you. Supawi, what's your tip?
Yes. Mainly it will be easy to read story and cute illustrations. Let me give an example of like Japanese books. Most of them are like easy to read and sometimes interactive with a lot of animals, a lot of stories for children to follow. So I think that will be the main point of how we choose the books. No offense, but Taiwanese illustration sometimes a little too abstract for our children to understand. Yeah, so that's the problem.
Especially a lot of like newer, younger illustrators who have studied abroad. I think some of them, their styles are very abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah, very artistic, but not as easy to sell.
Yeah.
Sometimes Taiwanese books is for adults more than children. It's picture books for adults.
Yeah. Okay. What about Indonesia? What about Yuliani?
Well, for children books, famous authors are not our main consideration. Like we recently take from Korea, it is large volumes, like 60 titles series, and we take it because it is very expensive if we develop in-house, and the content is very high quality. So educational content and like difficult to expensive to develop in-house. So we that kind of book that we license from foreign publishers in terms of children books. But for storybook, we don't license very much because such books is we have many that can develop that in local authors. I think that's.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Okay, so here's kind of follow-up question. 好呀。
Allow me to talk about the Vietnamese market. Speaking of rights, as the right manager, I think, and as I look into the children's book in Taiwan, I think the biggest problem is the price. Now, because in Vietnam, our children's book are relatively cheaper. So very often when I send a quotation, I receive the feedback from the author. He or she will say, does my book only worth that? For example, we have introduced Ao You Xiang, and Jimmy. Yes, these are good books, good authors. In the very beginning, there were a lot of challenges for Jimmy. For example, to Locals Publishing. I mean, we stay in contact for 2 to 3 years. It took us some time to persuade the publishing house. We have to persuade them because in Vietnam, our book, the market is cheaper. I mean, everything. And I'm lucky that we have agents like Grey Hawk in between us. So you know the situations in both sides. And now I would like to introduce to you this one. Can you see my screen? This is from Taiwan. Grace says.
这本书，对啊，Grace 说的，就从台湾引进的。
That's from Grace, you can say. Exactly, it's from Taiwan. It's very popular now. We already sold 30,000 copies. And I was a translator. I put this book into Vietnamese. So that is very good. So actually, culturally speaking, Vietnam and Taiwan are close. And I really hope that in the future, we can have more opportunity to introduce books from Taiwan and be published in Vietnam.
Talk a little bit about it, which is selling international rights. It's a lot. You really need to know a lot about what's going on in different countries. And I would cite one recent example is Turkey. I mean, they're having the very difficult time in terms of exchange rate. So 5 years ago, a Turkish offer would be 1,000, 2,000 American dollars. But now, because of the exchange rate, they can offer maybe only 400 or 500. And in the beginning, we were like, why are you offering so little? You were able to offer that much. But then you start reading the news and you realize that, you know, they're in a really bad shape. So yeah, I think a lot of the time we're doing, Sushin, I'm sure you'll agree that we're doing a lot of educating.
Yeah, you have to manage publishers' expectations. Like I know in Vietnam and Indonesia has the same, and to be honest, Taiwan had the same thing as well. And Thailand where like picture books, because it's like 32 pages. It used to be the retail price in Taiwan too for picture books was very low. But over like, I don't know, the last 10 or 15 years, like perception gradually changed. But I understand picture books is still like retail, depending by the page number rather than the content. So sometimes when the publishers receive the offer, they almost feel like we've insulted them. Like, why have you given me such an offer? And you're like, oh, we're trying really hard to like, but I think that is part of the problem with, you know, because the rights market is also still like developing in Taiwan. So a lot of publishers, they're like Grace said, they're not really like aware of what's happening in other markets. So they're just like basing their calculation on here and then, you know, selling to China or selling to Korea. So it's completely different.
Okay, thank you. And then here is a kind of a follow-up question to the one about online storytelling, because yeah, I think this is a complicated one. Like how do you handle the legal aspect of someone just, you know, telling the story of a picture book online, you know, for free or because of personal interest. I think here and in China as well, there are some like really influential like KOL influencer parents, and sometimes they would recommend the picture books they love, and they tell the stories online, and they basically read out the whole book, and you know, without charge. But they do help sales in a sense. But on the other hand, they're not being licensed to do that, you know, on YouTube or on any other platforms. How do you deal with this situation? I guess it's a case by case scenario. Ali?
We only allow 10 to 90% of the whole content to the influencers. to read aloud, to export to the online platform.
So if they want to read the whole book, they have to pay or something.
We haven't got any offers like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they use it for free. Yeah. But I don't think I think we can do that if they want to. Yeah, use the usage fee. Yes. But usually, yeah, that's not happening.
Qinglan, have you encountered any such cases? People reading the whole book out online. How do you deal with the license legal part of the situation?
就是在越南，如果遇到这样的盗版
In Vietnam, if we encounter this kind of piracy, it's very difficult to deal with. If they are pirating like physical books, then it's maybe easier to retrieve it. However, it happens online, it's difficult to process or prosecute.
What about Jira? What about in Indonesia? Have you encountered any such cases? Jira? Juliani?
Okay. Yes, we have find some cases in which our books is being read out for audiobook and make a video without asking us for permission. Usually we know it after they already made it. So we cannot do anything about it actually. So we think as long as it is for non-commercial use, it is maybe okay. Yeah. So what can we do? Even we report to the law enforcement, they will do nothing about it. So at least we know that it is non-commercial, and then we ask them to put on credit line, like it is first published by, so they can find it in where to buy. So maybe it can help with promotions. That's our stand for this case.
Thank you. Supawi, can you talk us about Thailand?
We have some cases of reading all the content in the books on YouTube. So first we gave them warning to like remove the video. And if they have like a lot of followers or subscribers, we hire them to be our influencer. To like review the books and tell story of some pages of the books to increase the sales. It's actually like beneficial for the sales in general. So we don't really kind of like forbid them strictly to not do that. Just try to like read some pages.
What's the best for the book? How about I think it's the last question. What about trend? How do you observe, or how do you predict the trend, and how do you? This is a tricky question. How do you find out what you think will be working in the future, so to speak? Like do you watch Amazon, or do you read press publications that publishes weekly, and like what is the way for you to decide what kind of books is going to work, and whether to follow the trend or to do something entirely different, or to avoid the trend, for example? Fun?
As acquisition staff and as an editor, I think my reading experience helped a lot because I can predict what's gonna be good for our market. Like in the early of this year, we have published one of the pop science title, and it goes very well. I think you will be know what will be good if you are in trend. Like you have to know what people are talking about currently, or you have to know the pain point of the customers, because actually books need to solve, book needs to help them solving problems. If you can help the customer solving problem, then the customer will support you.
Thank you. How about you?
I have the same idea. This one in Thailand, right? We have the same when we know that what customer want, and then I think that when we can have them to show on problems from customer, I think that they will support us. Last year, we found that some customer have a problem in maybe feeling, and sometimes they feel lonely or something like that. And then we try to find some book how to show with lonely individual people. Yeah.
Thank you. Ellie, how do you decide which direction to go for your acquisition?
I go to online bookstore every day, and also I often look at Amazon website, and a lot of editors look at scan social medias a lot, to follow trend, and it's quite important these days. And also we use a lot of book reviewers, so we got a lot of opinions from them.
Yuliani?
Okay. In terms of finding the trend, what we do is usually we look at the social media as well, to know what people are talking about, what people, the situations, current situations in the society. And also we look at the seasons, maybe start of school year, we provide books for children that support early educations. And also we do watch other publishers' bestsellers list always. Actually, for a long time, there are topics that always in the top of the bestsellers list for children's book. For Indonesia, it's usually religious content. So that kind of book always green in our list. And then second one is educational, start of school years. Parents always looking for activity books. And also sometimes we create a trend by using influencers in the social media, but it doesn't really often succeed. I think that's 3 points for us in watching the trends or making the trend. Thank you.
When you work with an influencer, do they have each have their own pricing, like how much you have to pay them to do some kind of activity?
Yeah, they have it. They have the list of price, but for some influencers that really close to us, they give us 50% discount.
Wow. Yeah.
We help each other, mutually beneficial.
Here's a question: Is TikTok a big thing in your markets? because Book Talker has been like a really big.
Yes, I read that trend book talk, yeah, but I don't see it in Indonesia yet. Having this big talk, book talk influence. So not really much yet, but I read in other countries it starts growing the influence.
What about the others? Is book talk a big thing in your markets?
How about in Taiwan?
No. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I think we're all sharing the news about book talk, but I don't think it's, as far as I don't think it's had a big influence for the publishers yet. But I know some publishers, they because each publisher has its own readership, and sometimes they take the feedback or as the readers grow up. So, for example, at the moment, a lot of fiction publishers are also starting to publish more chapter books or YA because maybe the readers were reading them when they were like 3 to 6, and now they are 7 years old. So they realize like they are following us, and we need to publish more mature content as they grow up.
Great. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and for all our speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what's next?
Thank you.
So the next would be, so Katrina will explain the next step.